Welcome back to another episode working on Wolley. I've been sitting here for a little bit trying to put down all my thoughts on what needs to get done, and it got super overwhelming. So what I usually do is just start to write stuff out on a whiteboard, and that helps me with this project, with life, with everything. So I feel a little more comfortable breaking it down into kind of digestible chunks. In this episode, I do want to get the engine running by itself a little bit more. I'd love to see the truck actually move under its own power, which it probably hasn't done in decades, so that would be really cool. I'd like to work on the coolant system a little bit if I do get the engine running, so that I'm not worried about it overheating. I still have to figure out if the coil is overheating, and if it is, what I need to do there. But I actually wanted to start by giving you guys a little bit more of the vision of this truck and what I'm planning on doing moving forward. For a 72-year-old truck, this thing is pretty awesome. Very straight body, original in most ways. Paint is not original, but that's actually one of the things that drew me to the truck. It's got killer patina, which I'm hoping to bring out even a little bit more. I've got a buddy who's has some experience there and is willing to, and I think excited to help me rejuvenate the paint or see what's underneath, whatever I can do there. But for an East Coast truck, or at least that's where it was living most recently, it is pretty solid and pretty straight. So pretty psyched about that. Plenty of work that I need to do, but I really want to just keep it original as much as I can. And there's two really motivations for that. One, I don't want to spend a lot of money on this. I want to try to be as frugal as I possibly can, but also it's just cool the way it was. And I want to just have it be back to what it once was without putting too much into it. So as you might have already been able to tell from some of the videos, I'm trying to be resourceful. I'm trying to use Rusty Bobby where I can. I'm just trying to fix things just enough to get it back on the road to start. And as things break and wear out, which they certainly will, then I'll fix them as needed. I'm also excited to actually use this truck as a truck. I've never had a truck. I do have a trailer that I can hook to my SUV, but thinking an 8-foot bed, what can I do with that? It's going to be pretty sweet. Very different than the Scout that I have, which is made more as a family vehicle, or I made it into a family vehicle that's fun to drive around. This one will definitely be taking my kids and my wife around in, but won't even be able to fit everyone all at once. But super psyched to just kind of get this thing back to working and get back on the road as soon as possible. As some of you guys will remember, I was able to get Wolley to fire in the last episode. Yeah! And only for a couple seconds, because I was just spoon feeding it starter fluid and gas. But what I want to do now is see if it'll actually run by itself for a longer period of time. And as it turns out, the carburetor here is actually a stock L110 carburetor that were all on the 220 cubic inch silver diamond engines. This is a Carter YF carburetor, very common for that era, used on Jeeps and some other vehicles. The original carburetor that was on Wolley, that I thought was original in stock, was not. And that's good, because it was stuck and not stock. So that's gonna sit back on the bench. I may do something with that or not. But what I've done so far is just hooked up things to actually have this run by itself. So I got my gravity fed fuel tank up there for my snowblower. I've got the throttle linkage hooked up. There's actually no spring component on this side. It's all on the accelerator pedal. So now it's stuck closed or sprung closed until I open it. I got the vacuum line hooked up there, which goes directly to the distributor. And one thing I intentionally did not hook up was the choke, because the choke cable that goes into the cab is pretty stuck. And it's actually kind of convenient for me to be able to manually adjust the choke as I try to get this thing started. So let's see if it'll run for more than a couple seconds. I'd call that a success. Let's get a little smoke in here. I gotta open the doors. Wow, that's awesome. Cool. I think next I am going to see if I can actually get it in gear, see if the clutch works, and see if I can actually move this thing a little bit. That would be sweet.
So now we got Wolley's engine running.
So we want to see if he moves.
So now we have to build a temporary seat.
The bucket it is. Come to think of it, I don't even know what the shift pattern is. It's 4 on the floor. I'm assuming it's kind of a normal H pattern, and I think reverse is all the way to the right and forward. But we'll find out together, I guess. Didn't work. Let's try it again. I forgot I turned the gas off last time. Let's see. Well, it has reverse, and I forgot it doesn't have brakes. So as you saw, it went in reverse a little bit, which is awesome. And then to go forward, I just kind of lurched it a little bit. It's got the wheel chocks in front of it, but it also seems like it has first too, which is awesome. Also, you may have heard it backfire. Definitely plenty of stuff to do to tune there, but super psyched. It moves at least in reverse and first. So another step towards getting this back on the road. Just wanted to share something with you guys. I kind of did an impulse buy today when I was at Lowe's picking up some stuff for the house, actually. I was just thinking, hey, I really need a way to measure the temperature for the coil because it's still getting hot, which I need to get to the bottom of. So I went over to the tool section and looked for the infrared thermometers, you know, the point and shoot laser ones. I picked this up for 25 bucks, which is crazy to me. I was thinking it'd be a couple $100, but also thought it was funny. I did have to replace the battery here, and it made me think something that I'll share with you guys, because you guys, if you're watching this, you're probably similar to me. You can see in my shop I have what some would consider too many tools, but you can never have enough. But I went over to my spare screwdriver drawer over here and was looking for a small screwdriver, and this is the one that I came across, which is just comically small. But I can't tell you how many times I've actually used this thing in a pinch. I don't even remember when I bought it, where I bought it. It was probably in the bottom of a toolbox that I bought for $5 or something like that. But that temperature gauge is going to be super helpful. So let me just take a quick measurement and see what the coil is at, because I've been running the engine for a couple minutes. Turn this guy on, point and shoot, and we're about, oh, I can't, not steady here. 100 degrees or so. What I've read so far is that that's pretty typical, but I know from what I was feeling before, although I'm not a calibrated touch tester, actually, maybe that is how hot it was getting. Well, this will be a nice tool to keep tabs on that. Maybe it's not heating up more than it's supposed to. What I've read is that 100 degrees is kind of normal. That's like what an engine bay probably is when it's actually running. Now that the engine's running and the vehicle's moving, I don't want to actually run the engine long enough to do any damage by overheating it. So I'm going to start looking into the cooling system. One thing that I knew when I actually looked at this truck for the first time, it is bone dry in there, and also someone is pretty creative with a beer can to at least cap it off. But if you look in there, which I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, it is pretty dry and there's some crusty stuff in there. So I might end up doing a coolant flush. But I did go right out to Rusty Bobby and actually take the radiator cap that they had there, which works. Seal looks like it has better days, but again, I'm trying to do this on a budget and kind of scrappy and keep everything original. I was about to dump some coolant in there and see if there are any leaks, but I did look down. It looks like the the drainage valve here was left open. So I think maybe someone actually drained it when they put this thing to bed. I'm gonna start by closing that valve and see if there are any big leaks once I dump a little bit of coolant in there. I actually thought I had more coolant than this. It's probably not even a quart in there, so I'll have to get some more coolant and see how that goes. But at least there's something in there. I can check for leaks, see if anything's pouring out the bottom anywhere. I did go out and get some more coolant, but I'm going to change my strategy a little bit. I'm going to start by filling up the cooling system here with water. Let that run for a little bit. Hopefully that collects any kind of junk that's in there, and then do a full drain. So basically do a flush with water. I think that's beneficial in a couple ways. One, it's not a waste of coolant. So I'll drain the water out and get rid of the water. But also if there is a leak somewhere, I'm not leaking coolant everywhere, it's just water, and I can clean that up. I am actually going to use a coolant jug because it is a gallon. That way I'll be able to monitor how much coolant it's actually taking. My assumption is it was bone dry, other than that 1 quart or so I put in before. So I'm going to take a couple trips back and forth to the house to get some water because I don't have water out in the shop. The other thing that I learned recently about coolant or antifreeze is it does both of those things. It cools the engine. It also doesn't freeze, which is good, so that if you get a below freezing day or night, it doesn't do any damage to your block or anything else. But water has a higher coefficient of heat transfer than coolant. So just a little fun fact. Although coolant itself actually does coat some elements so that they can't oxidize. So don't think about running water even if you're in a warm climate. It's probably good to run coolant. So let's get started. I've put 2 gallons of water in, came back out, and noticing looks like 2 different leaks. So let's see. Maybe it's hard to see there. Yep, looks like 1 leak is coming from the water pump and another leak there, which actually I think is a drain, coolant drain, which would, I guess, make sense if that's open. Since someone drained some, looks like someone drained the coolant before, so. Okay, that looks like it's stopped. It doesn't look like there's any more dripping from the water pump. I'm gonna put a little more water in and just see what happens. Well, I'm certainly glad I didn't use coolant because it's still leaking, and it does look like it's leaking from the upper radiator hose still leaking. Might be able to hear it in the background. Still leaking from what I think is the water pump. So I'm gonna start taking apart some stuff up there, seeing if I can get access to the water pump and see if I can get at least a gasket on order and some new radiator hoses. Well, now I have much better access to the water pump itself. Looks like there's 2 bolts right there. Sorry for the filming. And 2 bolts covered in gunk over there. So next will be take out the water pump. I already ordered 2 new water pump gaskets, one to the block, and then the other is kind of an intermediate gasket. I'm going to replace both of those and hopefully that solves the problem. And then I got to figure out, I got to get some replacement hoses for those 2, which may be an issue, but I'm sure I'll figure something out. So as I'm waiting for those parts to come in, I'm going to switch gears to something else on the truck that needs attention. Not sure exactly what that's going to be yet, but stay tuned. Plenty of content, and thank you for watching.